A while back, I heard about how terrible Lone Ranger was doing both with critics and at the box office. When I went to go see it, I was kinda surprised how decent it was, but later I wasn't so surprised that it disagreed with the critics. In fact, this seems to happen a lot in recent years. It's not just me, but other moviegoers feel that critics nowadays are out of touch with audiences. Usually they'll like something that's not even that good, or they'll hate something that's not even that bad. So, here are my top 10 movies that wasn't as bad as the critics said they were. Now, keep in mind that none of these are perfect movies. Number 10, Ghost Rider. The story and the characters are not that good, but it definitely has its moments. People have said that the flaming skull looked really fake, but how can they judge? Have you ever seen a skull on fire? If I ever saw one, that's what I imagine it would look like. Number 9, Star Wars Episode 1, The Phantom Menace. I will not disagree with the fact that this movie's plot has more holes than Swiss cheese and the characters are really flawed, but the visuals are still pretty good and it's really entertaining. I don't know why people criticize the pod race as being boring. Are we that critical to the point where we can't enjoy an action sequence? The duel with Darth Maul is great and so is the music. The truly bad Star Wars prequel in my opinion is Attack the Clones. I consider it a boring version of Phantom Menace. Number 8, G.I. Joe The Rise of Cobra. I'm definitely not a fan of G.I. Joe and I watched this with an open mind. It turned out to be okay. It's definitely not terrible and there are some cool action scenes throughout. I like how they developed the relationship between Duke and Baroness. While some of the characters were a little annoying, that doesn't give them the right to kill off most of them in the sequel. Number 7, Godzilla. Both Godzilla fans and critics for some reason hate this movie, but when I ask people about my age if they liked it or not, they actually liked it. The main complaint is that they weaken Godzilla, but this Godzilla is supposed to ground him more in reality. The Christopher Nolan Batman films do the same thing, no one complained about that. Another is the criticism of the characters. It's a giant monster movie. If you want to go see this for the characters, you obviously went to the wrong movie. Number 6, Transformers Revenge of the Fallen. This is one of the first movies I remember being baffled by how much the critics hated it. Although I do agree that it's a step down from the first one, it's definitely more of a popcorn flick, and entertaining one at that. One of the main complaints is the overuse of Megan Fox. They were right that she was in there a lot, but I'm not complaining. Number 5, The Wolfman. It's not as good as the Lon Chaney Jr. one from the 1940s, but it's very watchable. It does have some pretty good scenery, cool werewolf designs, and some scary moments. I'm glad they decided to make it rated R and just be realistic that way. I thought the London scene was the highlight of the movie, and I seem to watch it every time I decide to take a look at it. Number 4, The Hulk. The main complaint from people on the internet is that it's too emotional and not enough action. Bruce Banner gets turned into the Hulk by getting angry. Anger is an emotion. I thought that it was a good theme that the movie had going. The visuals are outdated, but it's still solid. Other complaints is that the villain is his father. I thought it was a good decision because in the comics the cause of the Hulk's anger is from child abuse. Number 3, The Watchmen. People that seem to dislike this movie are the fans of the graphic novel. They complain that they changed how millions of New Yorkers died, but what can you take more seriously, a giant explosion or a giant alien squid? Second, it would be a lot easier to frame Dr. Manhattan with a blue explosion than a giant alien squid. With those problems aside, The Watchmen is easily one of the best comic book movies I've seen. Dr. Manhattan's origin story is so strong in its own right that this scene alone could have been its own short film. Number 2, Batman Returns. When Batman came out, audiences liked the darker Batman, but when the sequel came out, people complained that it was too dark. The studio didn't like it because they couldn't sell many toys, and because of that we got the brighter, campier Batman films. I think this Batman film is as dark as the recent Batman films, but you show it to someone nowadays, they'll probably enjoy it. I like the villains. Danny DeVito was great as the Penguin, and so was his makeup. One of my favorite scenes is when Selena Kyle makes her transition to Catwoman. It's so well done that it should be discussed in film classes. And number 1 is Van Helsing. Growing up, I loved the classic Universal monsters. When I saw Van Helsing, I was stoked to see it. I enjoyed it a lot, and I still do, but I have found out in recent years that critics actually bashed it. They say that Bela Lugosi, Boris Karloff, and Lon Chaney Jr. are rolling around in their graves because of it. Okay, the whole point of Van Helsing was not just to really be an homage to the classic Universal monster films, but to update them. What's more scary, this? Or this? The Frankenstein monster might have been annoying and the CGI might be a little bit outdated, but it's still extremely entertaining. I can't believe there have been at least 4 Paranormal Activity films, 6 Fast and the Furious films, a Grown Ups 2, 3 Big Mama's House movies, but we can't get a Van Helsing 2.